task was to cover no brokerage relationships.
Right.
And the issue I was running into.
The task was, and don't let us get in trouble.
Right. So the issue was finding anything that was affirmative, like a no, in a no brokerage relationship, you only do this A, B, and C.
Yeah.
There's really nothing.
Wow.
So what I ended up doing was I ended up taking the statute. The Florida statute changed in 1997, and it was supposed to delineate and define better the brokerage relationships between a brokerage and a buyer and a seller. So I've got the statute here, and it's under section 475.
Okay.
So the statute calls out three relationships. One is, well, so to start, the statute defaults to transactional.
Yay.
So if you do nothing, which you can't now under the NAR settlement, you have to do something, you are a transactional broker. Prior to 1997, a transactional broker was similar to a dual agency. You could represent both buyer and seller.
Yep.
There was still a degree of fiduciary relationship. There was still a degree of loyalty. There was still limitations, but you were actually representing both in the transaction. So what the statute did was it changed that. So now a transactional broker owes no fiduciary duty to the party that they've signed the agreement with. There's no agency. The issue, and like what Kent was saying, was everybody's so used to, I mean, you form licensee relationships because you want them to trust you. I represent you. I'm going to represent your best interest. I'm going to negotiate on your behalf. That's not transactional anymore. You're actually telling them you are a sole agent because you're creating that fiduciary agency relationship. So you need to be careful what you say, and you need to be careful how you represent yourself. I mean, they're friends, they're family, they're,
Sure.
How do you close this sale, or how do you close this listing agreement if they don't trust you? And how are they going to trust you if you say, I'm not your fiduciary. I owe you no duties, that kind of thing. So it's
Be fair and honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard, road that you guys are going to have to delineate with. So what I tried to do was take it from the statute, and what I've got is the statute, but then I've got it in here the Florida Association of Realtor notices with regard to transactions sole and no brokerage.
Okay.
So if you notice under transaction broker, you deal honestly and fairly, you account for all funds, and you disclose all known facts.
Yeah.
So those are the three basic duties you have, whether you're transaction, no broker, or sole broker. But in a transaction brokerage, additionally, you're going to use skill, care, and diligence. You're going to present offers and counteroffers in a timely manner, and there's limited confidentiality. So the limited confidentiality means
So we
that
used to have them sign this, and we don't have to anymore because it's just presumed, correct?
it is presumed, but the listing agreements, depending on which one
Right, they do show it.
you check.
But we used to use this actual form.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Yep. And these are still in here, so you could, set that
Still
out.
utilize it.
Yeah.
Still utilize that, right. So as a transactional broker, you're not going to disclose certain things. You're not going to disclose to the other party that the seller will accept a price less, that the buyer will pay more, the motivation of the party selling, what terms, what financing terms they're gonna agree to, or any other confidential information that your buyer or your seller has given you. You're not gonna disclose that. I'm gonna keep relating back to no brokerage.
Mhm.
So in a no brokerage, none of that exists.
Yeah.
And, and again, the caution is not to have your buyer or seller presume or assume or expect
Mhm.
that that's gonna happen, unless you've put it in writing, unless it's in the agreement, unless you've specifically said, yes. Because the way the statute reads, your advice, which I don't know how you would represent them fully,
Right,
to your buyer or seller is, don't tell me.
right.
Right.
Don't tell me information if you don't want me to,
Yep.
Mhm.
either use it, be able to do something,
Yeah.
Yep.
kind of thing. So
Wow.
so it's hard. It's hard.
So in a way,
Okay.
could you kind of use that loophole as you shouldn't be talking about certain things to the other, as a transaction?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You could phrase it as the sellers have asked me to ask you,
Right,
you just become the middleman.
right. Yes, yeah.
basically.
Yeah, what you're doing is facilitating and assisting.
Well,
You
and a
know.
lot of the firms, are we gonna do this as like a round
Yeah,
table? or
oh, yeah,
that-
no,
Okay,
no.
so I didn't know if we should hold our questions
No, no,
till the
no.
end or not. But it's just such an interesting spin to run through all of these various scenarios. But, in this kind of thing, if somebody is, or if we're non-rep and,
Mhm.
they tell us, hey, we'll accept this lower price. What's to stop us from telling everybody they'll accept the lower price?
Right.
We just can't put it in writing because they don't have it signed off on. Now, if they don't put it in writing
Mhm.
and they just tell us verbally,
If you are a transaction broker,
mhm,
technically, you can't disclose that to the
even
other
if the
side.
seller tells you, go ahead and tell them. So
Oh, if the seller
what
tells
if the
you,
seller
sure.
instructs you to?
Oh, yeah,
Should you still have it in
Yeah, you're
writing?
just saying it's all verbal.
See, because what I'll do is I'll go back, right,
Right.
but I'll go back and I'll send an email to the seller and say, hey, according to your instructions, you've told me to share.
Mhm, mhm.
Boom. Don't do it without doing that.
Yeah.
Because you need a paper
Yeah,
trail.
yeah, the best way to cover yourself, especially with these gray areas of disclosure and what do
Yeah.
you disclose and what information do you, is
Yeah.
to do your emails and,
Just to
or
make
writing
sure I've
or
got it
something.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
To
And make
reiterate
sure
our
that,
conversation.
that you've authorized me, or you
Right.
have them reply, yes, go ahead.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I
And do
should stop
this.
being lazy about that then.
It's an important one.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to have lawsuits that we can't
Mhm.
defend. We don't want to have lawsuits to start with,
Yeah.
but how
Right.
much worse if you can't defend it?
Right,
Yeah.
Let me back that up with, we've never had one yet, in all these
Mhm.
years.
yeah.
I have sat in front of the board with other agents that used to work for us, but that's different.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing with the NAR settlement, right? I mean, that was the lawsuit to begin with, was that my realtors were not representing me in an appropriate fashion, or pursuant to my understanding of the agency relationship I had with them, or the fiduciary duties that they, yep, that they were representing me. And that's where that whole thing came in.
Yeah. That's what I'm all
Mhm.
about.
Yeah.
I love attorneys.
Don't you?
You love ours.
Yeah.
I know, I love mine.
Because actually, transaction and no broke, I mean, you are there to facilitate the transaction. You are there to close.
Yeah.
To get the parties to the finish line,
Yeah.
to get it done. And not that you're gonna do whatever it takes to do that, but,
Yeah,
mhm.
so hence the reason we have an attorney sitting here, because she dwells on the small details too, and will help us that don't.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why I attached the FAR notices, because as you'll notice, like, the next one is single agent relationship. I mean, transaction, you've got 7, single agent, you've got 9. I mean, and that one, loyalty, confidentiality, I mean, that's a whole 100%. I represent you,
Yeah.
I'm gonna fight for your interests, I'm not gonna tell
all
anybody
about you.
anything, it's all about you.
Yeah.
Yep. Whether the
Yeah.
transaction dies or lives, it's
Mhm.
you know.
Obviously, I have a ton of questions on this. That's why I asked you to come in,
Mhm.
because I started looking through it myself and in depth, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So with this, I'm going, can we even tell people what to list their property for if we're in a non-rep position?
Yes.
It's not putting
Well-
forth the professional foot saying that I am.
Well, and that's where you get to your agreements.
Mhm.
Because FAR has been really good at putting in the listing agreements, whether it's a buyer agreement or a seller agreement. The duties and responsibilities of
Both
the
parties.
licensee, right? Especially the licensee. That, on a transaction brokerage or a listing agreement, you are going to do a comparative analysis for your clients. You are going to. Now, there's a fine line between presenting and advising. So you do your comps, you set it out, mathematically, here's the average, I mean, they are retaining you for your experience in the market.
So their next question is gonna be, so what do you think we should price it at? And are you now not advising?
Well,
You could base it off the comps.
Yeah,
yes,
Which,
what the numbers are saying.
Yes.
which is what we're doing anyway, because if you don't bring comps anyway,
Right.
they're not gonna
That's
trust
what
you.
we always do.
right.
My
Mhm.
question is, what's the proper phrasing when we're asked these questions? So we don't step over that line and slip.
Yeah, a
It's
lot of
it's
it
a
is
fine
putting
line.
together a script and sticking to it.
Mhm.
And papering your file. Anytime you're presenting information or potentially giving advice, you're papering it. You're papering it with comps. You're papering it with an email. You're
Yeah.
papering it with, that kind of thing. You're keeping it all within the boundaries where they're running the show.
Yep. I
You're
remember
not you.
one training I did on this a while ago. What they said is every single email that we send somebody that's in a non-rep agreement with
Mhm.
us is to remind them in every single email. Just recall that
Mhm.
I am in a non-representative
Mhm.
position for you,
Mhm.
and here's the way we're working right now. Now, to answer that question, here's what
Mhm.
I have.
Right. Take it, leave it, that
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I mean, not to, toot our horn, but that's why you call me.
Right.
Mhm.
What do you think about this situation? What's going on? What would you recommend? Because you can always go back and say, the attorney said,
Yeah.
because it's not coming from you,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
So, yeah.
And we do use that a lot.
My broker is full.
Right, there you go. My broker said.
Broker
Right.
said,
Well, you know what?
that's it.
But that is true because the agreements are not between you and the buyer and
That's
seller.
right.
That's right.
It's the broker,
Mhm.
right? You're the sales agent, you're the licensee, you're in a sense, the middleman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can't get sued without me getting sued. That's just the way it is.
That's right, doing day to day. So, yes, I mean, if that's the case, make him the bad guy.
For
You
sure.
know,
Throw
this
me
is,
under the bus.
this is
That's
company
good.
rules.
Right.
This is the company rule, this is,
Mhm.
policy, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So transaction broker, we're really gonna be using a lot of most of the time, especially, I mean, I'm assuming the markets will also justify that as well.
Almost 100% of the
Because
time
it's
you
too
are a
late right
transaction
now.
broker. That's,
Would be terrible,
and easy to get sued.
right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, because
it's
you
so
have-
hard to obey.
yeah, because you have to be such a representative advocate. I mean, any little,
Yeah, you're locked in,
oh, yeah. Mm-hmm,
so.
Yeah.
And it's like constantly being told secrets that you can't share.
that's true.
Mm.
And remembering
Yeah.
which buyer or seller you were working with that's in that position. So that you
Right,
do it effectively.
Yeah.
right.
Having to put on a different pair of shoes every time you answer the phone.
I have one in our app file.
Yeah.
We shouldn't, write by a name, put what kind of representation it is.
I think that would be wise. However,
How do we do it?
99.5% of our transactions are transactions.
Okay, well then how about that? If it's anything other than transaction,
Yes.
it should be
Right.
notated.
Or else our files will look
Yeah.
a hot mess.
Yeah.
Understood.
That's true. Hmm. And the nice thing about, and the transaction broker then, right, there's no fiduciary relationship.
Mhm.
So that's what allows you to represent both the buyer, not represent, sorry.
Assist.
Assist and facilitate both a buyer and a seller.
Yeah.
Now, you still have, the restrictions about just because you're involved in the transaction, you're not going to tell the buyer the lowest the seller's gonna go. You're not gonna tell the seller the highest the buyer's gonna go. I mean, that, needs to stay confidential with regard to that relationship.
Yeah.
But a lot of the communication between the two is pretty open. I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
And you've got to watch when you're working honestly with older realtors, because it used to be the case that you just sit down and hash it out. And, you
Mhm.
know, you tell your folks this, I'll tell my folks that, let's see if we can't get this thing done. Got to be careful.
True. Yeah, that's true. Well, and you'll find realtors too, which I'm sure you've come across that, they are basically acting as sole agent because
Mhm.
you don't even know if they're talking to their own client.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've had some of those.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're out there and
I'm
they're
like, wow,
making
you got
they're
a
making
quick answer.
decisions for, yeah.
I call them
Right?
the news with machine guns.
Yeah, I mean, they're making decisions that that the buyer, the seller should be making.
Right.
They should be taking and that's the other thing, you taking everything back
Yeah.
to your buyer or seller,
Yeah.
unless
Yeah,
you've
which
already
they have.
pre-discussed that or,
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
something I've
Yeah.
had pre-discussed already, that I already know the answer that comes up, so
Right.
I get that. I
Right.
guess that happens.
Yeah, but I've had actually agents in front of me, sign for their buyer. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot that one here.
Oh.
And it's like,
Well,
no.
Can't do
No, you can't do that. But it happens.
Mhm.
So we've got to watch ourselves. If they do that in front of us, don't take it.
yeah.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Or, it's just lack of education and training like we're doing right
Mhm.
now. It's
Yeah.
challenging when firms and people, or firms do it and people don't come.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
we can't force people to come
Yeah.
to trainings and meetings and
No.
learn more than
Mm.
the law that they learned, to get their
Yeah.
license. It's scary.
Well, that's the crazy thing. So many people are licensed, but I'm like, you use maybe less than a quarter of what you learn getting licensed in actual day-to-day real estate
Mhm.
business.
Mhm. Well, and the issue is it's always changing. I mean, the
Right.
statute changed in
Always
1997. That's not
changing.
too long ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And you've got these older agents or agents that have been practicing and, transactional to them was, yeah, I represent you. I represent your best interest, it's
Mhm.
that, well,
Yes,
now
that's
under
single
the
agent.
statute,
Yeah.
technically you don't,
Mm.
you represent the transaction, you're transactional. You're gonna make it work kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then we get to, no broker, which then is at the very end. And as you can see from the no broke, there's only 3. You really only have 3 duties to your buyer or seller. You need to deal honestly and fairly. You need to disclose all known facts, and you need to account for all their funds. That's it. Really all the 3 duties that you owe them under a no broke situation. Now, the disclosure of facts, that runs throughout because that's Johnson v. Davis. It's like any material fact that the buyer would not necessarily have known, any material fact.
Yeah.
You have a duty to disclose. Or if the seller technically, if the seller or buyer tells you something, material fact, not readily
Sure.
discoverable,
Yeah.
you have a duty to disclose.
Kind of like if they have a private house on the river and a bridge is coming across and they're not from here and you know that fact and you don't share it with them,
Mm-hmm.
you're at fault.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so you
Jack.
can't rely solely on the seller disclosure or solely on
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the buyer information kind of thing. So with regard to
Wow. that's
no
great.
broke,
Just the 3.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So in a no broke, there's no brokerage relationship. You just have 3 duties, and as long as you follow those duties, you're fine. The comment is, right, so you don't represent, and that's why the forms say the buyer's a consumer.
Mhm.
They're not your buyer. You're not their agent. They also, and then the seller's the seller, because seller, of course, is selling the property. So the duties of the licensee, you have to fully describe, which is these 3 things, which is attached basically to the agreements, depending on which one you pick.
Mhm.
And it has to disclose before you show property. same thing, like
Okay.
NAR. Mhm.
I assume our forms are set up this way. I gotta go back and look at that too.
Mhm.
Must be printed in uppercase bold type.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Well,
I brought,
Oh, our house forms?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause I brought like a buyer broker and a exclusive listing.
Mhm.
And basically, you know, it has it. I mean, they have them.
Right.
Well,
It
we're
does.
not using
And this is
any,
bold in the top.
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
using all FAR bars on that. The only things where it's our
Mhm.
house forms is like escalation addendums and the
Right.
like the broker to broker.
Right.
agreement.
I think the hard thing for me to remember is what Ann's saying.
Mhm.
It's in the forms that we use anyway with them when we have them sign.
Mhm.
It's there and it should be done properly, but just verifying is
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Mhm. And that's the other confusing part, I think, for sales agents and brokerages, that, you know, a lot of them do their own forms, which, you know,
Mhm.
you want your logo on there, you want to,
Sure.
you want to identify.
Mhm.
But the forms that FAR and FAR bar have set out have them all in there.
Yeah.
But then you have 12 to choose from,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
Plus the modifications,
Mhm.
plus
Yeah.
this, plus that. So
Oh, yeah.
it's, you know,
the CR67? Is it?
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you start combining various contract forms, suddenly it's
Yeah.
not, not a valid form.
Right,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right. Or, okay, am I extending myself into this other realm? Because I've taken this paragraph from this form and put it into this form because these are the services we want to provide.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the terminology of the service
Mhm.
includes loyalty, confidentiality, you know,
Yeah.
things that a sole broker duties would cover.
We need to make sure on our side
Buyer's
again
list?
that all of these things just, and even our, let's go with our buyers guides and things. That, what we say we're going to do,
We do.
well, that we do, but that it also lines up
With
fully
the-
with,
Mhm,
with
Relationship
these
that
Yeah.
relationships,
Yeah.
yes. But we need to validate.
But I think too, if you take the 3, the 7, the 9 from the statute,
Mhm.
the duties are there, and
Yeah.
those are your duties of loyalty and representation, basically.
Mhm.
All the other stuff is transactional.
Mhm.
Right,
I'll draft a contract for you. I'll be there when the inspections are,
Mhm.
you know, available. I'll assist in negotiating. I'll assist or facilitate in, it's that terminology. You're
Yeah.
not saying, I'm fully gonna represent your interest in this transaction.
I
Okay,
never-
now you're on this side.
Wow, I never even thought about a non-broker or a no broker relationship as a buyer's agent.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't either. I was like, okay, so you're just.
I only related this to a seller,
Mm. Mm.
Mhm.
but a
And-
buyer's agent could
Mhm.
do that too and go, yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
write the contract, whatever you tell me to do, and that's
Right.
that.
Well, the epitome of, and I was looking this up, the epitome of a no-broke relationship is these flat fee MLS.
Yep.
Right.
They're no broke,
It
it's a brokerage
Mhm.
that is providing a service. I don't represent you. I have no fiduciary duty to you. I
Yeah,
have no disclosure duty. I have no confidentiality duty.
Yeah.
I will provide a contract form, but you're responsible to fill it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, no broke is like the lowest
Yeah.
level of service
Yes.
technically.
Mhm.
And then you take the risk of, and that's for you guys to decide. On a no broke, basically the buyer and seller should be talking to each other.
right.
Mhm.
That's
All
right.
you're doing is, you know,
And-
assisting.
Yep,
Yeah,
send me a copy of everything you agree to.
yeah.
Do me a favor, Leah, open up our website.
Mhm. Or being there, you know, to open the house up for an inspection, or,
Yep.
I mean, you can laundry list, you can go beyond just MLS services or, you know, website services. You can expand on that, but they have to be action services.
I even wonder, how's that work if you are there for a, inspection?
As long as
Or
you
to advising?
disclose.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can't advise.
just
You
don't
could
care.
be there, you can open
You're
the door.
You're just there.
saying, "Hey, the inspector said this.
Terrible role to be in, okay.
Yeah.
I like to give
You're
advice
literally just a
way too
messenger.
much for that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you have your old GC hat that likes to
Uh-huh.
hang in your windshield.
Okay, so I want to
Mm-hmm.
show the types of services that we offer. Because it's important to go down through virtual agents, the one I'm looking at, on down. There.
I don't think we ever really put any.
Is it stalling? Oh, gosh, not again. I can't believe
Have
it's
you
been
really?
hacked a couple times now.
Your,
Yeah.
the website.
The website.
Thanksgiving, we got.
It's like, what a waste of my time, come on.
Listeners, wait, go get it, Keller Williams.
I pictured some
With like-
brainiac,
Listen, we're not selling noise.
Yeah, yeah.
right? I really picture a brainiac 13-year-old that's just having fun.
All these branch offices with it too, you know.
Mhm.
And like you're,
Virtual
and like
agents,
you're not
that's
gonna
all I'm
notice,
saying.
right? The smaller the agency, it's like you're not gonna notice that there's something going on.
So,
Sometimes there are occasions where homeowners would prefer managing the sale of their
Yeah.
home with limited support. To
Right.
further support our clients, owner material be has developed your virtual agent program. Offering for sell by owners, support the protect you and ensures a smooth transaction.
yeah, but we should probably
And you
add
could-
on to that.
You could do, you
No
know, like
brokerage
facilitate and assist,
Mhm.
because that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and a no broke.
Mm-hmm. Well, even transactional,
Mhm.
you know.
So just be real.
Okay,
Listen, you wanna be in charge? You're more than welcome.
Yep.
Well, and
right.
again,
You
though,
are
I
the
mean,
best
then you find, you know, incidents where you're the last to know, though, right?
Yes.
Your seller goes out and the agent comes back to you on the other side and says, well, here's the addendum. And you're like,
Mm,
what addendum?
Yeah.
Well, the parties
Right.
got together, they decided the purchase price is now gonna be, you know, 300,000.
Mhm.
You gotta like bite your tongue and go, okay,
There's limitations too.
it's like seller, did you do this, you know,
Yes.
or did you
Mhm.
agree to this? Okay, if you did, well. But yeah, but read the agreements because that breaks it down a little bit more. And then maybe come up with your own laundry list. I think it goes back to as well, what services are you actually selling? I mean, a lot of it is your personal relationship with somebody,
for sure.
but you're not getting paid for supposedly spending 2 hours at an open house or spending 2 hours at
Right.
an inspection.
Right.
You're now getting paid for spending 2 hours to draft a contract and 5 hours
Yeah.
Yes.
to do 20 amendments
Yeah.
or revisions. I
Mhm.
mean, your time is money, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what this gets at. This is outlining what services are incorporated in that 3%.
Yep.
You know,
That's where I think anybody that wants to go down the non-rep trail or the virtual agent trail, we just need to make for darn sure that we send them what we actually do if they go to the next level.
Yep.
Because very few people would stay at that point, unless it's a builder that has their own reps sitting there or whatever.
Mhm.
Or that wants to just
Which some
do it all
don't.
themselves,
I was about to
right?
say.
Yep,
Mhm.
small builders,
Mhm.
things like that. And
Yeah.
we'll help them, but
Yep.
we're not gonna be breaking the law.
We're gonna
anywhere.
assist them.
Right,
Here.
right.
Yes,
You're
we're
gonna
going to
assist and
assist.
facilitate, right?
We can assist and facilitate. We need to
Right.
remember those two words.
Yeah.
Can't help you, I can assist you.
Mhm.
Well, and that's the thing with the no broke. I mean, in the readings that I've done, you're representing a client that is familiar, is seasoned,
Yeah.
knows what they're doing. I mean, you have people like that. They bought and sold 20 investment houses and
Mhm.
really, they don't want the inconvenience of being at an inspection.
Yeah.
Or they want somebody else to draft the contract because you've got the most updated forms. They want somebody, they don't need you negotiating, you know, necessarily.
Yeah, they've done that part.
You're pulling the comps because they don't have access to
Mhm.
Yeah.
the real estate comps. You're there as the support team.
Right.
You're the tool.
Right,
essentially,
right.
In the least offensive way.
And transactional is the same, except to a higher degree of service.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit more with regard to confidentiality, there's a little bit more, you know, restrictions as to that, but the underlying is you don't owe them a fiduciary relationship, there's no agency, you just have to be more careful if you do transactional because there are more restrictions on the information you share, you know, the negotiations that you do.
So in reality then, if we list one that way, the seller's responsible for all their own photos and everything. Or are you
Unless you
assisting?
contract.
Right,
Mhm.
they're assisting, and if they wanna go to the next level and pay for the photos, they pay for the photos. And you know, your little markup on top of that, I'm assuming, because you're facilitating, but you can still, gosh, can you even mark it up if it's, you know,
Well, they don't know what the markup is.
right,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, you can have different, I would say, package levels, you can go bronze, silver, gold with it. You still
Exactly.
have your
which is what
notebook.
we've laid out.
Yeah.
Right.
I
They
have
have to
that,
write that out.
I
to
have
you
that
others,
laid out,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly.
And then you'd
Mhm.
pay through,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, they can't pull it directly to the, or they can go take pictures themselves and you just, now you're uploading crappy pictures that represent
I took
you.
it with my Samsung too.
Right, I used my,
Right.
my old iPad, isn't
Right.
it great pictures? These are wonderful,
There's me in the mirror.
Yeah,
I forgot the underground,
yeah.
darn it.
And I don't know that you necessarily have to go into that much detail, but in support of the 2.5%, the 3%, the 4% you're
Yes.
asking,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are, you know, costs and expenses out of pocket
Mhm.
versus
Correct.
whatever
Yeah.
that you're going through. And the nice thing is the listing agreement that FAR's put out, I mean, reads almost exactly the same if you were no broke or transactional.
Yeah.
Your duties are still the same, you know, their duties are still the same. There's a little bit more in here about, you know, types of financing and different things. But the disclosure is at the end, which is all that's technically legally mandated. And then there's provision for you to add the services that you're gonna be providing. And you can just laundry list them,
Yep.
you know, professional photos, this, drafting a contract. So.
Right on, wow,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, obviously this was just rattling around in my brain, that's why I was like,
Mhm.
and,
Mhm. Mhm.
help us.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
There's a horse on the property, and how do I? And have you ever heard of a?
There was a.
Is there a form?
You ever heard of
Is it a form for a horse?
First ones.
Right,
Right.
ever heard of an indigenous people loan?
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, and I think there, you know, there's gonna be a really big percentage of people that are cut and dried.
Right,
Yes.
They sell, they buy, they do whatever. I mean, the standard
Yes, yep.
contract's gonna be, there's no funny negotiation, there's no additional clauses other than the standard repair or this or that.
Right.
But then you get people that, you know,
Right, it's really, it's all. We just, it's all really, it's all up to us,
Mhm.
how in depth we really wanna make it.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless, like you said, the clients already have an idea what this looks like and they have expectations. Kind of for you already,
yeah,
mhm,
then that's our choice whether to
yeah.
mark it up.
Well, and then the other challenges I think that come in are you're working with a friend that wants to sell their house themselves and they start asking you a laundry list of questions.
mhm,
Do you actually represent them or not, or are you just assisting them?
right,
Yeah.
There's a fine
Right.
line too,
mhm.
so,
And that's why they have limited service.
right.
So again, I mean, there's a form for
Mhm.
everything. You just need to go check and look,
Yeah,
you know.
Really.
But again, back to Ken's statement, support everything in writing.
Yeah.
That's, you know,
We'll track it all.
yeah, as the broker, as the licensee, then support everything in writing. Because that's what's gonna come back and get you.
Yeah.
Is you, through the process of the transaction, do this, and then there's more questions, and then you end up doing this, and then there's more questions, and you end up doing this, and there's no, and it just keeps rolling.
Yeah, you're like, well, that was that phone call and that phone call and that phone call,
Mhm.
and you have no track
Mhm.
record.
Mhm.
And at some point, you're gonna have to say, I mean,
Yeah.
and I know you know, Chris has done this too, it's like, you pick up the phone and you call.
Right.
I have a horse on the property. What do we do?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
It's like, okay, this is
Is that real?
beyond my realm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, whose property was
Very
it?
real.
So.
Yeah.
They bought it and the horse was still
The
there?
largest,
Buyers,
yeah.
yeah.
So the horse was
I
still,
feel
they
bad
left
for
the
that
horse.
now.
This, yeah, the sellers,
Yeah.
it's still there. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with the horse. So,
Oh, they didn't sign it over?
I want a
Not
horse.
officially.
So,
That one's a fun one. We're still, I'm
We'll
still.
I thought
we'll see,
joke,
we'll
that
see
was
when we
my
get to
real-
closing, right? Yeah,
Once the property closes, you could, take it to another level and start sending them a bill, for the horse
Have to
on the
save them.
I
property.
told them that.
Or they have the option
Yeah.
of, signing a horse over, which would you?
They don't want the
prefer?
horse?
No, but they want us to pay for the horse now. We're not paying for the horse, but we can,
yeah.
you can sign the horse over.
If you don't, yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
want it, then just leave it.
Oh,
So,
Mhm.
oh, so they don't
And
even.
a lot of-
Otherwise, get rid of it.
And a lot of people
Move it.
do that.
Get the most juiced out of this.
So wait, they left the horse, they don't want the horse, and now they want your buyers to pay for it.
Right.
but my
Well,
buyers,
that's sad.
my buyers love it.
Oh, no.
Oh.
It's
Did
sad,
they
but you
show
see it a
them what
lot.
they left
People
on
leave
the
horses all the time.
Right.
What?
Did they-
Oh, yeah.
did the sellers
Or
know
animals
they
or-
left them?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
horses are amazing.
Yeah.
The sellers think that the horse is a bother.
Good.
Oh,
So
got it.
we're gonna leave it like that.
Make sure you edit
Which
that.
is why I told Jackie, I said, you need to stop posting the horse stories on your Instagram.
She's.
That's
My
right.
They're gonna
horse.
catch wind that you love this horse. and they're like, yeah,
You're
they're-
paying to feed it, you gotta stop.
Yeah.
right.
This is my
I
new
have a
horse.
beautiful facade built up.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hilarious.
Mhm.
It's a fun one.
Mhm.
There's never a dull moment. in it.
Yeah.
No doubt. And it's always a learning curve.
That's
So I
true.
love it.
That's true.
Yeah, I think I have that in that file now, if you ever need it.
A horse?
The horse.
The horse file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that's
I didn't think that could happen,
Yeah.
like, who just leaves a horse, like, it's not,
People
like,
do it. Yeah,
I mean, it's
all the
not-
time.
it's not
It's
even
the
like.
same as the
cat, like-
guy that leaves his dog when a hurricane.
They just don't have a place.
Or
to-
that leave sheep or
Yeah.
cows, cattle on the
On the
property.
property.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then they'll still claim ownership of cattle. I've seen that occur. But
Oh,
anyway,
my God.
Wow.
yeah, they're branded, they're mine. Hey,
Yeah.
did we cover what you had in mind? Cause we squirrel really easily.
We
are
do,
so
yeah,
squirrel.
we do, we do, okay. Let's see. Yeah, we actually did. So, and then on the no bro, basically, it only applies to residential,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Looking at that.
so, yeah.
That's where mainly the only-
So basically, and you guys are mostly transactional. So, you know, if you focus on the transactional and, because you can get away from, or you can overstep on that too, because the way they've changed the statute now on transactional, you technically don't represent them. You represent the
The transaction.
transaction.
Yep,
Boy, people get a weird look on their face sometimes when I explain that to them.
correct.
Mhm.
Well, you
It's
don't
like,
represent me.
I'm here for you to assist you and make
Yep.
sure everything goes properly, but
Correct.
really, we work for the transaction.
Well, and I think, you know, they're kind of pushing it into the realm of, you know, doctors and attorneys.
Mhm.
You know, because I know I get a lot. It's like, well, buyer's paying, but can't you represent both of them? It's like,
No,
no.
who pays me?
What is
Who-
No.
Whoever
Yeah,
pays me,
yeah.
yes, whoever pays me.
That is fun explaining to people during the.
What if
presentation
in that
process.
situation, since you
Mhm.
guys brought it up, now with the whole commission thing, what if the buyer's still paying part of your commission? And you still have the seller still paying your commission, so now you still have two parties.
Well,
Pay you.
that's your commission,
Mhm.
makes no difference. So the buyer broker agreement, is between you and the buyer.
Mhm.
The commission is from the seller,
Mhm.
and that's another agreement. So you have two separate agreements.
As
that
long as
run
you have
side by
a
side.
transactional
Yeah, but at that
relationship.
point, are you still a transactional broker?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
the
Absolutely.
buyer brokerage addendum does nothing except make clear what your commission's getting paid
Correct.
and what your duties to them are, and it's still under a transactional format because that's the go-to for
They're
Florida.
just still hiring you
Mhm.
to make sure
Yeah.
that you get paid your commission, because if you don't have that signed, then they
Mhm.
can just walk away.
But if your
And-
buyer says, I want you as a single agent and it's your listing,
Yep.
you can't.
You can't
Yeah.
do it.
And then always,
Mhm.
again, go back and double check what we've already, done in app files and say, or on YouTube, whatever, on those forms, because, honestly, they're making it easier for us to get a full commission.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
if you don't ask for it, and you just concede. I mean, and there are some buyers where I've sold them 7, 8 properties, whatever. I'm not gonna take anything more than the seller's willing to pay me. It's just gonna
Mhm.
happen that way. On the other hand, if it's somebody else and, you know, the seller's paying 2%, I'm gonna get another 1% out of the buyers.
Mhm.
And that's okay.
Mhm.
They signed it, they agreed, explain it to them. This is, yeah, I'm representing you, I'm working hard for you, I'm assisting you to get all these things done, and this is what we get paid beforehand, because you don't even know what the seller's gonna pay.
Right.
But they can direct you to not show them properties where the
Mhm.
folks aren't paying that. But
Yeah.
as agents, we also can't, filter what we're going to show people
Mhm.
by what those commissions are, which is a screwy,
Mhm.
to me, it's
So you can't
oxymoron
do
to
it on
me.
yourself, but you can have them direct you to not, as long as it is in writing. But you also cannot filter what you're sending them
Yeah.
as options
Yeah,
based off of
and
what
some
the-
attorneys are saying you can't even call and find out what that is from the listing agent ahead of time.
The commission?
Yes, because they're saying, some of them are saying that you're breaking the law doing that. But the fact of the matter is that the commission's fully negotiable. In other words, you just submit what you expect to get
Right.
paid.
Yeah.
Right.
With your
Right.
offer.
Right.
But,
Mhm.
you know, fact of the matter is, it doesn't work that way. in
So
real
that's
life.
like the
Mhm.
same
You just
thing
can't get
as the
there.
price, like your asking price is not the thing. It's more negotiable, but you still advertise it.
Right.
I'm not calling.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Like-
yet we
Mhm.
can, what's goofy is we can put out, our own advertising and stuff showing what we're paying other
Right,
people.
but
It's
you
like,
can't put it on the MLS.
it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
How is this more clear?
Fine has done a fantastic job of doing that in their email blast, I will say.
That's smart to do.
Now, when it comes to compensation agreements with broker to broker or
Mhm.
seller to broker, is there one that we lean towards?
Broker to broker.
Broker to broker.
Yeah.
I would still call and confirm with the agent, but 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's well, the one we got coming up in a
Mhm.
week, she actually, we signed a broker to broker, and then she called me up a week later and said, hey,
No,
actually,
it's a
I forgot
seller.
it's a seller to broker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
that's fine. You just
Mhm.
need to find out which one it is.
Right.
And have it in there accurately.
Right.
If you have addendum GG in place, it'll make it easier if you can't get a hold of them when you're submitting the offer,
Mhm.
because that allows you to be like, okay, within 3 calendar days of the.
Right. Yeah.
But
It
the
has
date
to
that
be
we all
agreed to.
signed, we'll figure this out.
And I preferred that versus putting it in additional terms. Because
Mhm.
when you put it in
Oh,
additional
yes.
terms, the seller is actually agreeing.
Correct,
And then you find out it's a broker to broker.
right.
Technically, it's a double charge.
Oh,
Because they've paid their broker, you're getting this.
separate.
And now the seller in the contract has said, technically, it's a double charge.
Yeah.
You know, the seller said, I'm gonna pay. So
And
now
then
you've got a
covered
buyer
with
broker,
3%
seller broker,
And another 2.
3, yeah.
But can you really?
Yeah.
Because the contracts, or the purchase offers that we use,
Mhm.
state and show that with the buyer broker agreement now, if it's being paid by the seller,
Oh, in
you're-
excess
it's
of.
reduced.
But this is an additional terms. It's like a seller credit to buyer.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Mhm.
Okay.
They
I-
put it
I
in
love the
additional terms. They
addendums,
don't
yeah.
put, yeah,
Yeah, I love the
use the
addendums.
addendums.
Always
Yes.
use an addendum.
Yeah.
If there's an addendum for it, why would we
Yeah.
become attorneys and write it
Yeah,
ourselves?
because a couple times
And
I've
same
I've
does
had
for us.
them
We've got
back
one.
out, yeah, I've had
Got
them
one.
back out the additional terms.
Got one on the
Mhm.
offer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
but personally, I like the
Yeah.
FF, I think it is. Or is it the GG? I get them confused.
Nothing, the GG.
Yeah.
I think it's the FF
Right.
saying that, I know, it's the one, I like the one saying.
So you're going
that,
from 12
here's what
pages
we're
to
getting paid.
42 pages because there's so many
Yeah.
addendums that you're gonna.
And there's nothing to stop us from calling the listing agent and saying,
And
"Hey,
most of them
can
are,
you send me over the form, please."
most of them will let you know, right? I mean, there's very few
Most of them,
that,
some don't know.
Some don't, but
what do you mean some don't know?
just
Oh, yeah,
don't
some
know.
are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they just don't
Oh,
know.
my gosh.
And you get a
No,
bunch
there's a
things
lot of
and
that.
Oh,
They-
that's,
I don't know how
that's
they got their
dangerous.
licenses.
Very dangerous.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're getting zero training
Yeah, that's true.
because they won't go to the training or
Sellers,
they're not being
there
taught.
you go. Mhm.
Yeah,
3 days, yep.
okay, that's the GG,
GG.
And the
Right.
I like
FF.
the FF, which says this is what I'm getting paid by you, period.
Oh, why is she?
There you have it.
Mhm.
You got it right down.
Oh. Okay, perfect.
That's the one I've been
Yeah,
using.
that's the credit, yeah,
I do
to
that one.
buyer's broker.
I do that one, almost all the time. That this is the way it's gonna be and submit that. Because if they initial it, done.
Oh.
I don't wanna negotiate it after the fact. I want it up
Mhm.
front.
Uh-huh, okay, fair enough. I would always just send Gigi in tandem with the, compensation agreement.
That's what I do.
Mhm.
I use FF
Yeah.
I think that's.
and I don't send
Mhm.
a listing agent my buyer broker agreement. It's none of their
I
business.
don't send anyone.
Right,
buyer
right.
broker
And-
agreement.
and,
I'm
you know, and it
talking
does
about
say
the
that, right.
compensation agreement where it's, seller broker,
Mhm.
buyer's broker.
Right,
Mm.
Yeah,
but you know they signed a buyer broker.
But this is prior.
Agreement.
Right, so
You
this,
know
you
there's-
could just bypass this and ask the agent.
But if you don't get an answer,
No,
Correct,
Yeah.
then you would use.
I
If you don't-
still
yeah.
use this anyway.
just to
Just
to
to have it.
reconfirm.
It's just a double in their
Yeah.
face. Hey, this is what's happening.
That's a
You
good
can't,
point.
it can't be misconstrued because here it is again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, I always thought that an as-is contract, with its escape clauses was enough until talking with Ann and finding out that, wait a minute, the as-is addendum is actually that much clearer that if they back out of an agreement and you have the as-is addendum with it, they're out, period. No questions asked.
so you're talking inspection period as is,
Mm.
or anything as is?
Well, the as-is addendum says, usually it's used when you have a standard contract,
Mhm.
which was kind of weird because it kind of
Mhm.
converts it. But it says that
Hey.
if you sign a standard contract and you put an as-is rider on there, that during the inspection period, the buyer has as-is rights.
Oh, I love that.
And that, once
buyer's agent.
once
Yeah,
the
that's
inspection
right.
period expires, now you're back to the standard and they have to repair.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm putting it with an as-is contract as well. It's just an
Mhm.
easy,
Why
it's
not?
an easy out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just dot and dot and
Yeah.
Ss and Ts.
Well, and I thought it was just completely redundant until I learned that it's
Mhm.
actually just a broader sweep, with the language. And It's
A
like,
little bit, yeah.
it's like,
I
okay.
don't
Yeah.
think I've ever seen someone submit a standard with an as-is, right?
I had people, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, standard with as-is, right.
Mhm.
I'd be like,
They
that's
used to do
faulty,
that,
all
yeah.
right.
But I get it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I get it.
But we should relook at that though, because with the changes that they've been making, I should relook at that as is inspection and just make sure that there's no conflicting language that they've incorporated in
Please
there.
do.
And I'll let you
Yeah,
know. Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
All right, what else,
So-
guys?
Mm-hmm.
While we have Ann's ear in here, it's a smart.
Any
time
other
to ask
questions? No. Good.
Oh,
And brainstorming is good.
It is. Yeah, and then just going back to the broker the broker agreements, just
Yeah,
make sure the consistent boxes are all checked.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I guess, until Leah and I talked more recently about, when I submit an offer. I always have a copy of the MLS agreement, or MLS with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that if there were something incorrect, we're still saying, hey, this is the property. It
Yeah,
can't be
that the number
misconstrued
was
in any
off on
way.
the PID
And,
or something.
yep.
Right,
Everything
right.
is right here that you had in the MLS.
Mhm.
And,
Yep, that's what you're
Even though I
representing.
wrote in 5856, it's actually 5857.
Right.
Right.
I
right,
recently had to do something like that
Yeah.
because the
do it every time.
owners of the home were police officers, so they were not found in any of the
Oh,
arrests.
yeah, they're not.
So
Yeah.
it was a nice little
Yep.
digging going on.
Same thing with a lot of judges
yeah.
and anybody that's in certain public offices,
Yeah.
you're not gonna find them.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even somebody that's had clearances in the past can still
Mhm.
hide their stuff if they want to.
That's
I have
true.
folks I'm gonna be working for again that's their position.
Mhm.
And I'm like, why do you do
How do
that?
you
Why
hide
do
your
you do
stuff?
that?
Can you hide them if you're not working like public services or?
You call the
There's
county
certain
appraiser's office and tell them what you
applications,
need to do. And
yeah.
yeah, they'll have you fill out the proper things and done.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is a little
I'm Chris Schutz, I'm just a realtor.
I know, yeah,
Mhm.
which is a
But-
little
Hi,
inconsistent
I'm
because,
so tired
because
of
if
people
you-
stopping by my house.
because if
helping.
you go into the official records, your name's there, the deed's there. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but you will
Yeah.
have to do that digging. Right now, it's like just go online
But
and just
True.
find
Yeah, it's like
any
you
buyer,
just look up
yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
A lot
true.
of
I mean,
people
you
don't
can just
know how to
find
look up
anybody.
top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the-
No, there's not a lot.
Yeah, they'd have
Yeah.
they'd have to have your name to begin with.
100%.
Yeah,
But it
that's
is
And
true.
remember how to spell it.
But if
That's
you
right.
have the name, it is easier.
Mhm.
Yeah, I still don't even know how to spell your last name.
That's okay.
Starts with S and then it's somewhere Z in there. I don't
And
know.
you should
That's
take your
true.
breakfast with you
That's
too. Look at all
and
that.
that's it.
Oh, my God, I'll take some of it.
That are-
But yeah, so yeah.
FF in tandem
Mhm,
with this that way.
Yes.
Yeah. yeah.
And the thing is,
Mhm.
ask the listing agent, do you have a seller broker buyer broker agreement? Please send it over,
Which they
Mhm.
should.
which they should, but I get a lot of,
Well, that
Huh?
2-page thing, yeah.
yeah, I get a whole
Yeah.
lot of, huh?
I'm not asking for the exclusive, the exclusive
not-
agreement.
Right.
I'm just asking for that, yeah,
Correct. I
that
want the
additional
part that-
form.
That affects me.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Right.
But so many people don't have it,
Hmm,
and you're going, hello?
Wow.
hmm,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
then I think the smart thing to do is if you're offering a good
Right.
compensation, why not just leave
Mhm.
those with your MLS sheets on the countertop?
Right.
So an agent can pick them up.
Which one
Right.
is this? What? Which one? Which one?
The seller's broker to
The
buyer's
seller
broker,
broker.
the agreement.
This
Yeah.
one? Okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Have it filled out, have it
Mhm.
completed and have it
Mhm.
laying right there by your MLS
Right.
listings for people to pick up.
Mhm. And
Okay.
I think too, when you're dealing with a buyer, I mean, the seller, you know, you guys listing wise, you have
No,
it
you
covered.
can't put
This is
something
what I'm doing, this is what I'm
Well,
not
it's-
doing, this is what I'm representing.
Right.
Like,
But
I
on
have
the
box
buyer
checked,
side, it may be a
seller's
harder
broker
sell
compensate.
because the buyers are like, well,
So
what are
broker
you doing
broker
for
exclusive
a
instead
2.5%?
of seller
Right.
broker.
Well, I'm showing you
Yeah.
40 properties.
Right.
Yeah, like you
So
could
the-
put
so the
house if you want.
Running multiple
activity
offers,
is-
whatever it takes to
Yeah,
get
so
there.
the
Yeah.
activity
Let's keep that
switches
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
regard to, and I think they have to be made aware of that.
And
It's
that's why we have sellers guides and buyers guides
Yeah.
that explain what we do.
totally
If
different.
anybody's not using those too, it's a big mistake.
Yeah,
Because it just shows your value. And
yeah,
if we can't express our value.
That's
people-
right.
That's the question that's gonna come out.
Yeah.
Why would I pay you that?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Why would
Especially
I
when
pay
you're,
you something above
especially
what
when you're
paying me?
transactional or no broke and
Mhm.
you have no loyal to me, you know,
Right.
what the heck are you
Yeah.
you know?
But I'm also seeing agents that are struggling because of these things in place, buyer's agents, that don't know how to express their value.
Yes,
And
Yes.
they're only paying 1%. What do I do?
Mhm.
Well, you're probably getting paid 1%.
yep.
Mhm.
And you may get a buyer that, you know, comes to you, there's an agent or for sale by owner even, or something. What I need assistance to facilitate this
Yeah.
transaction. I don't know how to draft up a contract. I
Mhm.
don't know how to,
Right.
you know, and then again, it can be exclusive because you want to broaden it,
Yeah.
or it can be one of those specific forms where you put 2 addresses down and say, okay, as to these 2 addresses, this is what I'm going to provide for you. And if one of them goes under contract, one of them closes, you know,
That's
then
what
I
I'm
get the
compensated.
2.5% or 3% because I am going to be drafting contracts and I am going to be negotiating and I am going to be, you know,
Yeah.
presenting your authorized
Yeah.
information.
And I hate using the single showing forms and stuff. It's like, no,
Mhm,
no. If you want to work with me, you work with me. If you want to work with somebody else, go for it.
mhm.
Even
But
when
I'm
people
not a
just
single
call
showing
on the
agent.
Listings, I'm like, hey, this is the buyer brokerage agreement that I have to have signed by law. I just set it for today, but if you wanna go see another home, we can go ahead and extend it.
Okay.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
But if a buyer is unrepresented, calls you on one of your listings.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Yes.
mhm.
What does that
Right.
say?
Right, because they're coming to see your house. I
Mhm.
mean, the house that you've listed.
Yeah.
Right, it's not like they're coming in and saying, I want to look at all of Parish for
Yeah,
a
this is the
property.
kind of home I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Right.
where you already know.
Right.
Yeah.
I got one of those right now.
Yeah, but the
Mhm.
minute you start going down through here's what you're looking for and this and that, and oh, by the way, I have another house that you ought to see with me,
Mhm.
right up the street. You've shifted gears. You
Right,
gotta have that.
right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
get that signed.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's one more thing to just remind ourselves.
narrow path. paper, paper, paper.
Yeah.
Document, document,
I keep
document.
saying I'm
I
gonna
literally
print
do
these
that,
and have them
Right.
like
Sure,
truck, but I
twice a
don't.
week where I just sit down and like, all right, let me go over everything that I've got, make sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, oh
Mhm.
crap, there's a missing initial. How
I
did
read
Leah not,
that.
how did Leah not catch that?
Wow, I'm missing that form. Okay, it's only been 2 weeks. Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay, so
Let's take this back.
So I hate to
Oh,
bring this
man.
up, but
Yeah,
when you have financing, please identify financing on page one.
no doubt. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Don't just check the box on page two.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
So I was talking with Sandy about Laura and the survey and all
Yeah.
that. Sandy emailed based off of financing. I was like, no. This is cash. We're supposed to close in like 2.5 weeks.
I know, I know, I
Please
know.
tell me so then.
Yeah,
Oh, Sandy has improved just leaps and bounds over
Love
time now,
Sandy.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, she's done a great
He's
job.
been awesome.
Yeah.
Such a
Good.
I don't
sweetheart.
know that I'd mentioned that to her, now, 'cause I
Yeah.
used to gripe at her a lot.
well,
Maybe you should go buy her chocolate.
there you go.
There you go,
Yeah.
right, right. But really, she's been doing
Yeah.
well.
Personally, yeah, I mean, she has grown.
Mhm, for sure.
I agree.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
All right, what else?
Okay.
I
What
can't
else?
think of anything else right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I've gotten all my questions.
Then we're
All my
done?
keys
Okay.
are